Stop scrolling. Before you leave this message, listen carefully, because there is a reason you found this video at this exact moment. You may have been asking yourself questions that nobody else can answer. Why am I still waiting? Why did God separate me from certain people? Why does it feel like everyone is moving forward while I am standing still? But what if I told you? Your waiting season is not proof that God forgot you. What if the silence you are experiencing is not rejection, but preparation? Because sometimes God hides something valuable before He reveals it. A seed does not become a tree while it is sitting under the sunlight. First, it goes into the darkness. First, it is buried. First, nobody sees what is happening beneath the ground. But hidden does not mean forgotten, and chosen one. You need to understand this. God may be hiding you because He is protecting something inside you that is not ready to be revealed yet. There are battles you never saw. There are doors God closed that you thought were disappointments. There are people who walked away that you thought were losses. But heaven saw what you could not see. Sometimes God removes distractions because He is preparing a person for a greater purpose. Look at Joseph in the Bible. Joseph had a dream from God. He saw greatness before he ever experienced greatness. But before he became the second most powerful person in Egypt, he was betrayed by his own brothers. He was thrown into a pit. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused. He was placed in prison. Imagine that moment. Joseph could have looked at his situation and said, "God, you gave me a dream, but my life looks completely opposite." But Joseph did not know what God was building behind the scenes. The prison was not the end of his story. The rejection was not the end of his story. The waiting was not the end of his story. It was preparation. And maybe today you are in your own prison season. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel invisible. Maybe you feel like your prayers are reaching the ceiling and coming back unanswered. But hear this clearly. God is not ignoring you. God is developing you. There are things that cannot be given to you until you become the person who can carry them. A blessing without preparation can become a burden. A door opened too early can destroy what God is trying to build. That is why some opportunities disappeared. That is why some relationships ended. That is why some plans failed. Not because you were abandoned, but because you were being redirected. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." You see only one chapter. God sees the entire book. You see the closed door. God sees the protection behind it. You see the delay. God sees the perfect timing. And there is something powerful you need to understand. The enemy often attacks what God has already chosen. The reason you have faced unusual struggles may be because there is something valuable connected to your future. Think about David. Before David stood in front of Goliath, he was alone in the fields taking care of sheep. Nobody celebrated him. Nobody recognized him. Nobody thought he was important. But while people ignored David, God was training David. The battles with the lions and bears were preparation for the giant. The lonely nights were preparation for leadership. The hidden season was preparing the public victory. And maybe your current season looks small. Maybe nobody understands your journey. Maybe people question why you are still waiting. But heaven is not measuring your life by what people see. Heaven is preparing you for what people cannot see. So today, I want you to ask yourself, what if this delay is actually divine protection? What if God removes certain people because they could not go where you are going? What if the reason you feel different is because you were never meant to follow the same path as everyone else? Chosen one, your story is not behind schedule. God does not operate according to human clocks. A flower does not bloom because someone demands it. It blooms when the conditions are right, and your breakthrough will arrive when the preparation meets the purpose. But there is something else you must know, because the hidden season has a purpose, and the moment God reveals what He has been preparing, people who ignored you will see what they could never understand. The same Joseph who was forgotten in prison became the person everyone needed. The same David who was overlooked became a king. The same Moses who spent years in the wilderness became a leader of nations. Never underestimate what God can do with someone who has been prepared in silence. So if you are watching this right now, write in the comments, God is preparing me. Not because everything is perfect, not because you have all the answers, but because you believe that God is working even when you cannot see it. Stay with me, because in the next part, we are going deeper into the signs that reveal whether your hidden season is about to end. And one of those signs is something many people completely miss. Your waiting may be closer to its final chapter than you think. Chosen one, if you are still here, there is a reason. Because not everyone stays when the message becomes deeper. Some people only want quick answers. They want instant miracles. They want blessings without transformation. But those who are truly being prepared by God understand something important. Before God changes your circumstances, He often changes you. The hidden season is not just about waiting for a door to open. It is about becoming the person who is ready to walk through that door. And maybe right now, you have noticed something different happening inside you. Maybe things that used to control you no longer have power over you. Maybe conversations you once needed are no longer important. Maybe places where you once felt comfortable suddenly feel uncomfortable. And you wonder, why am I changing? Why don't I fit in anymore? Why do I feel separated from things I used to love? Chosen one. Sometimes separation is not a loss. Sometimes separation is a sign that God is moving you into a new season. When a caterpillar enters a cocoon, the outside world sees nothing happening. It looks silent. It looks still. It looks like nothing is changing. But inside that darkness, a transformation is taking place. And when the right moment arrives, it does not come out as the same creature that entered. It comes out with wings. Maybe your current season feels like a cocoon. Maybe you feel surrounded by silence. Maybe you feel like nobody notices your effort. But heaven sees what people cannot see. God sees the prayers you whispered when nobody was around. God sees the tears you wiped away before anyone noticed. God sees the battles you fought silently. And sometimes the greatest victories are built in places where nobody is watching. Remember Moses. Before Moses stood before Pharaoh and demanded freedom for God's people, he spent decades in the wilderness. Decades. Can you imagine that? A man who was chosen to lead a nation spending years taking care of sheep? It probably looked like nothing was happening. People may have thought his greatest days were behind him, but God was not wasting those years. The wilderness was teaching Moses patience. The wilderness was teaching Moses humility. The wilderness was preparing him for a responsibility that was greater than anything he had imagined. Because leadership without character can destroy a person. Power without wisdom can become dangerous. That is why God often builds the foundation before He reveals the building. And maybe that is what God is doing with you. Maybe He is building your patience. Maybe He is strengthening your faith. Maybe He is removing your dependence on people's approval. Because there will come a moment when you cannot depend on anyone except God. And that moment will reveal what is truly inside you. Chosen one. One of the biggest signs that your hidden season is changing is this. You stop chasing what God is asking you to release. You stop forcing doors. You stop begging people to understand you. You stop trying to prove your worth because you finally realize your value was never created by people's opinions. Your identity was never given by the world. Your purpose was placed inside you by God. The world may look at your current situation and say, "You are behind." But God may be saying, "You are being prepared." The world may say, "Nothing is happening." But heaven may say, "The foundation is being built." There is a difference between being delayed and being denied. A delay means the timing is not complete. A denial means it will never happen. And when God has placed something in your life according to His purpose, no person, no obstacle, and no circumstance can permanently stop what He has planned. The Bible says in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Notice those words. All things. Not only good moments, not only victories, all things. The rejection, the disappointment, the waiting, the closed doors. God can use all of it, because God does not waste pain. He can turn a wound into wisdom. He can turn a setback into preparation. He can turn a forgotten season into a powerful testimony. But there is something you must be careful about. Many people leave their preparation season too early. They give up right before the breakthrough. They walk away because they cannot see anything happening. But a farmer does not dig up a seed every day to check if it is growing. The farmer trusts the process. The farmer knows something is happening beneath the surface. And faith works the same way. Sometimes you have to trust God even when you cannot trace God. You have to believe even when you cannot see, because the greatest miracles often begin in invisible places. Chosen one. There may have been moments when you asked, God, why did you allow this? Why did you close this door? Why did you let these people leave? But one day you may look back and realize the door you cried over was the door God was protecting you from. The person you begged to stay was the person God was removing. The opportunity you thought you lost was the opportunity God was replacing with something greater, because God does not remove something without knowing what He is preparing. And now I want you to remember this. Your hidden season has an expiration date. The night does not last forever. The winter does not last forever. The seed does not remain underground forever. There is the appointed time for everything. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Your current chapter is not your entire story. It is only one page, and God is still writing. So if you are watching this message and you feel like you have been forgotten, I want you to say, My season is changing. Let that be your reminder that waiting does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the greatest movement happens before anyone sees the result. Stay with me, because in the next part we are going to uncover the biggest mistake people make during their hidden season, a mistake that causes many people to walk away from the very blessing they were waiting for. Chosen one. Before we continue, remember what we discovered. Your hidden season is not empty. Your waiting is not wasted. And the silence you are experiencing does not mean God has stopped working. But now you need to understand something very important. There is one mistake that many people make when they are in a season of preparation, a mistake that causes them to walk away too soon, a mistake that makes them abandon the very process God is using to strengthen them. And that mistake is this. They start believing what they see more than what God promised. When life becomes difficult, the human mind starts searching for proof. You look at your situation and think, nothing is changing. You prayed, but the answer has not arrived. You waited, but the door is still closed. You trusted, but things became harder. And slowly, doubt begins to enter. Not because you do not love God, not because you have no faith, but because you are human. Even some of the greatest people in the Bible had moments where they struggled. Look at Elijah, the same Elijah who called down fire from heaven, the same Elijah who witnessed God's power in a mighty way, later found himself exhausted, afraid, and sitting alone in the wilderness. Imagine that. A man who experienced a miracle still had a moment of weakness. But God did not abandon Elijah in his lowest moment. God met him there. God strengthened him there. God reminded him that his story was not over. And chosen one, maybe today you are in your own wilderness. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you have been strong for everyone else, but secretly you are asking, how much longer, God? But listen carefully. A tired person is not a defeated person. A person who is waiting is not a person who has been forgotten. Sometimes the strongest faith is not when you are celebrating. Sometimes the strongest faith is when you are still standing while everything around you tells you to give up. Think about Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations, but years passed, and the promise did not look possible. His age increased. The circumstances looked impossible. The evidence around him suggested that nothing would happen, but God was not limited by Abraham's situation, because what God promises, He has the power to fulfill. The question is not, can God do it? The question is, will you trust Him while He is preparing it? Chosen one, do not allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. Do not let one difficult season convince you that God has forgotten your name. The enemy wants you to focus only on what is missing. He wants you to count every closed door, every disappointment, every rejection, every delay. Because if he can make you focus only on the struggle, you will forget the promise. But God wants you to remember something different. Remember every time He carried you before. Remember every situation you thought you would not survive. Remember every moment when there seemed to be no way, but somehow a way appeared. That was not luck. That was grace. That was God working behind the scenes. Sometimes you will not recognize a miracle while you are inside it. Sometimes you only understand God's protection after the danger has passed. Joseph probably did not understand the prison. Moses probably did not understand the wilderness. David probably did not understand the years of being overlooked. But later, God was with me even when I could not see Him. And that is the message you need today. God is not only present in your victory, God is present in your process. He is not only with you when the door opens, He is with you while you are waiting beside the door. He is not only your God on the mountain, He is also your God in the valley. Psalm 23 says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Notice something powerful. The verse does not say you will never walk through the valley. It says when you walk through it, God will be with you. The valley is not your final destination. It is a passage, a season, a chapter, not the entire story. Chosen one. Maybe people misunderstood you because they only saw your present. They did not see what God placed inside you. A diamond is hidden before it is displayed. Gold is tested before it becomes valuable. A masterpiece is created before it is placed in a gallery. And you are still being formed. You are still being prepared. You are still becoming who God designed you to be. But there is another danger during the hidden season, and many people fall into it. They start comparing their journey with someone else's journey. They look at someone else's success and ask, "God, why not me?" They see someone else's blessing and wonder, "Did you forget about me?" But comparison can destroy peace. Because you are comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight, you do not know their struggles, you do not know their battles, and more importantly, their assignment is not your assignment. God does not write everyone's story the same way. A tree does not grow like a flower. A mountain does not rise like a river. Different creations, different purposes, different timing. So stop measuring your life with someone else's clock. Your journey has been designed specifically for you. Chosen one. There is a reason God has allowed you to go through certain experiences. The pain taught you something. The waiting changed something. The rejection revealed something. The struggle built something. You are not the same person you were before, and that is the evidence that God has been working. So today, do not ask only, "When will my blessing arrive?" Also ask, "Who am I becoming while I wait?" Because sometimes the greatest miracle is not what God places in your hands. It is what God builds inside your heart. Stay with me, because in the next part, we are going deeper into the moment when God finally reveals what was hidden and why some people will be shocked when they see what God has been preparing in silence. Chosen one. You have reached a point in this message where you need to understand something deeper. The hidden season was never about hiding you forever. It was about preparing you for a moment that requires a stronger version of you. Because when God reveals something, He does not reveal it only to make people notice you. He reveals it because you are finally ready to carry the responsibility connected to it. Many people pray for a bigger blessing. but they forget to pray for the strength to handle that blessing. They ask for the open door, but they do not ask for the wisdom to walk through it. They ask for influence, but they do not ask for character. They ask for success, but they do not ask for the discipline needed to protect it. And that is why God sometimes waits, not because He does not love you, but because He loves you enough not to release something into your life before you are ready. Think about David. When Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David was not standing in a palace. He was not wearing royal clothing. He was not surrounded by people celebrating him. He was outside taking care of sheep. His own family did not even consider him important enough to call him first, but God saw what people ignored. God saw the heart. God saw the courage. God saw the future king while everyone else saw only a shepherd. And chosen one. That is something you need to remember. People judge what they can see. God sees what He placed inside you. People look at your current position. God looks at your purpose. People see your past mistakes. God sees your future potential. There is a difference between being overlooked by people and being unseen by God. You may be forgotten by humans, but you are never forgotten by heaven. There comes a moment when hidden things are revealed. A seed eventually breaks through the soil. A sunrise eventually replaces the darkness. A season eventually changes. And when that moment arrives, people will not understand how quickly everything changed. They will ask, "How did this happen? Where did this come from? What changed?" But they will not know the nights you spent praying. They will not know the battles you fought silently. They will not know how many times you wanted to give up but chose to continue, because they only see the fruit. They do not see the roots. Chosen one, your roots were being strengthened. Your faith was being tested. Your patience was being developed. Your character was being built. The same God who worked in the silence is the same God who will work in the revelation. Do not become bitter because your journey was different. A diamond is not created under comfortable conditions. Pressure creates something valuable. Fire removes impurities from gold, and difficult seasons often reveal the strength that was already inside you. Maybe you lost people. Maybe you lost opportunities. Maybe you lost things you thought you could not live without. But look at yourself today. You are still here. You are still standing. You are still moving forward. That means something. The enemy wanted the pain to destroy you, but God used the pain to develop you. The situation that was supposed to break you became the situation that built you. Romans 5:3-4 says, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Notice the process. Suffering, then perseverance, then character, then hope. God often works through a process, but humans usually want a shortcut. We want the victory without the battle. We want the crown without the preparation. But every great purpose has a preparation season. Moses had the wilderness. Joseph had the prison. David had the fields. Even Jesus spent years in preparation before beginning his public ministry. Hidden does not mean inactive. Silent does not mean empty. Waiting does not mean forgotten. Chosen one.
There is another sign that your season is changing.
You begin to feel a new level of clarity. Things that confused you before start becoming clear. You begin to understand why certain doors closed. You begin to see why certain people had to leave. You begin to recognize that God was protecting you from things you were asking Him to give you. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not receiving what you wanted. Sometimes the greatest blessing is being protected from what would have harmed you. A child may cry when a parent removes something dangerous from their hand. The child does not understand. They only see what was taken away. But the parent sees the danger, and God sees what we cannot see. So if God removed something from your life, do not immediately assume it was a loss. It may have been protection. It may have been preparation. It may have been redirection. Chosen one, the moment is coming when the hidden work will become visible. The prayers you thought were unanswered were being collected. The tears you thought nobody saw were being remembered. The lessons you thought were meaningless were preparing you. Your story is still being written, and the same God who started the work inside you is able to complete it. Philippians 1-6 reminds us, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. So do not quit in the middle of the process. Do not walk away because you cannot see the final picture. The artist does not show the unfinished painting and ask people to judge it. The builder does not reveal the foundation and call it the finished house. And God is not finished with you. Stay connected. Chosen one. You have walked through the hidden season. You have learned that waiting does not mean rejection. You have discovered that silence does not mean God is absent. And now we reach one of the most important moments of this message. Because there is a truth many people do not understand. A blessing is not only about receiving something from God. It is also about becoming someone who can handle what God gives you. Many people pray for the door to open. They pray for the opportunity. They pray for the breakthrough. But they forget that every open door comes with a responsibility. When God moves you into a new season, He does not only change your circumstances, He changes your assignment. He changes your influence. He changes the people you are called to impact. And that is why preparation matters. Because when the door opens, you cannot walk through it carrying the same mindset that kept you trapped. You cannot enter a new season while holding on to an old identity. You cannot step into purpose while still believing the lies that kept you afraid. Chosen one, there was a reason God allowed you to experience certain battles. There was a reason you had to develop patience. There was a reason you had to learn forgiveness. There was a reason you had to discover your strength. Because the person who enters the promise must be different from the person who started the journey. Look at Joshua. After Moses died, Joshua had to lead God's people into a new chapter. Imagine the pressure. He was following someone whose name was known everywhere. He had to step into a role that looked impossible. But God told Joshua, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." God did not tell Joshua that there would be no challenges. God did not promise that everyone would support him. God promised something greater, His presence. And chosen one, that is the same promise you have today. Your confidence cannot come only from your situation, because situations change, people change, opportunities change, but God's presence remains. There will be moments when your new season begins and people who doubted you suddenly want to know your story. People who ignored your journey may suddenly notice your progress. People who questioned your purpose may suddenly see the results. But remember this, never let recognition replace your relationship with God. The purpose was never to prove people wrong. The purpose was always to become who God created you to be. Because if your entire motivation is revenge, you will lose your peace. But if your motivation is purpose, you will walk with wisdom. Chosen one, there is something else you must understand. When God begins elevating you, not everyone will understand the change. Some people only know the old version of you. They remember your mistakes. They remember your failures. They remember the moments when you were struggling. But they may not recognize the person God has been building in the secret place. Joseph experienced this. The same brothers who rejected him later stood before him needing his help. Can you imagine that moment? The person they thought was finished was standing in a position of authority. But Joseph had a choice. He could use his power for revenge, or he could use his position for purpose. And Joseph chose forgiveness. Because his hidden season had changed him. He was no longer controlled by his pain. He was guided by his purpose. Chosen one, that is the true sign of transformation. Not when you finally get what you wanted, but when you become someone who can handle it with humility. A changed heart is a greater miracle than a changed situation. Because God is not only interested in giving you things, He is interested in building you. Maybe your biggest blessing will not be a new possession. Maybe your biggest blessing will be peace after years of anxiety. Maybe it will be confidence after years of rejection. Maybe it will be wisdom after years of mistakes. Maybe it will be forgiveness after years of carrying pain. Sometimes God changes the inside before He changes the outside. And when the inside changes, everything else begins to align. Chosen one, do not rush the process. A flower does not scream at the sun asking why it has not bloomed yet. It simply continues growing. A river does not fight every rock in its path. It continues flowing. And you must continue moving forward. Even if the progress feels small, even if nobody celebrates you yet, even if the results are not visible. Because God is not measuring your life by today's circumstances. He is looking at the complete story. There is a moment coming where you will understand why you had to wait, why you had to walk away, why certain prayers took longer, why certain doors stayed closed. And when that moment arrives, you will not wish you had received it earlier. You will thank God for the timing. If I received it before I was ready, I would have destroyed what God was trying to build. Chosen one, your waiting season was not wasted time. It was training, it was preparation, it was protection. And now you are approaching a new chapter. But before that chapter begins, there is one final lesson you must remember, because many people receive their blessing and then lose their focus. They forget the one who gave them the blessing. In the final part, we will talk about how to protect your purpose after God reveals what was hidden and the powerful message you need to carry into your next season. Stay with me. Your story is not ending here. Your greatest chapter may be closer than you think. Chosen one, you have reached the final part of this message, and before we finish, I want you to remember everything we have discovered. Your hidden season was not a punishment. Your waiting was not a rejection. Your struggles were not proof that God abandoned you. They were evidence that something deeper was happening, something you could not always see, something that was being built beneath the surface. Because God often does His greatest work in places where nobody is watching. The world celebrates the finished product, but God works on the process. People see the victory, but God sees the battles that created the victory. People see the blessing, but God sees the preparation behind the blessing. And chosen one, maybe today you are standing at the edge of a new chapter. Maybe you feel something changing inside you. Maybe you cannot explain it, but you know that you are not the same person you used to be. You have survived things you thought would destroy you. You have walked through storms you thought would never end. You have carried burdens that nobody else knew about, and yet you are still standing. That is not by accident. That is grace. That is strength. That is the evidence that God has been with you through every season. Remember the Israelites. They had to walk through the wilderness before reaching the promised land. The wilderness was uncomfortable. The wilderness was difficult. The wilderness tested their faith, but the wilderness was also where God provided. It was where God guided them. It was where they learned dependence. Sometimes the place you want to escape is the place where God is preparing you. Sometimes the season you hate is the season that creates the person you need to become. Chosen one, do not look back at your past with only pain. Look back with understanding. The rejection taught you discernment. The loneliness taught you strength. The waiting taught you patience. The failures taught you wisdom. Every chapter had a purpose. Every tear had a lesson. Every struggle produced something inside you. And now, the question is not, why did God allow me to go through that? The question is, how will I use what God taught me? Because your testimony is not only for you. Someone else is waiting to hear how you survived. Someone else needs to know that storms do not last forever. Someone else needs hope. Your story can become a light for someone walking through darkness. That is why God never wastes your experiences. He can take broken pieces and create something beautiful. He can take your greatest weakness and turn it into your greatest strength. He can take your darkest night and use it to reveal your brightest purpose. Chosen one, when your season changes, stay humble. When the door opens, remember who opened it. When blessings arrive, remember the one who prepared you to receive them. Never allow success to make you forget the lessons of the hidden season, because the same place where God built your character is the place that will keep you grounded when you rise. The Bible says in Proverbs 3:5-6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." You may not understand every step. You may not understand every delay. You may not understand every closed door, but you can trust the one who sees the entire path. Chosen one, the moment you have been waiting for is not only about what is coming to you. It is about who you have become while waiting. The old version of you could not carry the new blessing. That is why God strengthened you. That is why God stretched you. That is why God separated you. Because some assignments require a different level of faith. Some doors require a different level of maturity. Some blessings require a different version of you. And now you are closer than you realize. So when doubt comes, remember Joseph. When fear comes, remember Joshua. When loneliness comes, remember David. When the wilderness feels too long, remember Moses. Their stories prove one thing. God can take a hidden person and reveal them at the perfect moment. Not early, not late, but exactly when the purpose is ready. Chosen one, your story is still being written. The chapter that caused you pain was not the final chapter. The season that made you question everything was not the end. The same God who carried you through the storm will guide you into the next season. If this message touched your heart, write this in the comments. God is preparing my next chapter. Let those words be your declaration, not because life is always easy, not because you have every answer, but because you trust that God is working even when you cannot see. And if you believe that your hidden season has a purpose, share this message with someone who needs encouragement today. Subscribe to The Final Calling for more powerful faith-based messages, biblical inspiration, and reminders that God's timing is always perfect. Remember, you were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. You were being prepared. The waiting was not the end. The silence was not empty. The hidden season was not wasted. Because when God reveals what He has been building, no person can stop what He has already planned. May God strengthen your faith. May God guide your path. May God give you peace in every season. Your moment is coming.